Prayer. Om Sadashivasamarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam
अस्मदाचार्य पर्यन्तां वन्दे
Guruparam.
गुरुपरम्पराम्।
Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau
Sana Bhunaktu
Virya
Saviram Karvavahe
Tejasvi
Tejasvi Namaditamastu
Shamai
ॐ शान्ति शान्ति
Shanti
हरिः
Devendra Yogendram Natva Jnanapradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitataya Tattva Bodho Vidhiyate. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
ॐ।
Welcome. So in the last class, we finished talking about, actually, the author is just going to conclude now. We were talking about the third prakriya, the methodology to understand that what we are not, the 5 sheets, the panchakosha, the 5 functional layers of this body we were talking about. So the author is just concluding those topics now. At the end of your page 12, we will chant. Madiyam shariram madiyah pranah
मदीयं शरीरं मदीयः प्राणः
madiyam manascha madiya buddhihi
मदीयं मनश्च मदीया बुद्धिः
madiyam yajnanamiti
मदीयम् अज्ञानमिति
sveneva jnayate
स्वेनैव ज्ञानते
tadyata madiyatvena jnatam
अज्ञाता मदीयत्वेन ज्ञातम्
kataka kundala grihadikam
कटककुण्डलगृहादिकम्
स्वस्मादिभिन्नम्
स्वस्मादिभिन्नम्
तथा पञ्चकोशादिकम्
तथा पञ्चकोशादिकम्
स्वस्मादिभिन्नम्
स्वस्मादिभिन्नम्
मदीयत्वेन ज्ञातमात्मा
मदीयत्वेन ज्ञातमात्मा
न भवति.
न भवति।
Thank you. Just meeting you all again. So the author has a very clever argument here. We've talked about it a little before, that whatever I possess or use that I claim to be mine, it is not me. It belongs to me, but it is not myself. When we say my car, my house, we might be very attached to this house or to this car, and we use this house and car very extensively, but we don't have any confusion that I am this house or a car. I have a phone, but I'm not this phone. I have a dog, but I'm not a dog. You may have a child and see a lot of yourself in that child, but you know that the child is not you, hopefully. Similarly, all the Panchakoshas and Shariratrayam we claim as our possessions, as mine. These are not me. They are simply a temporary medium through which I interact with the world. When I look at how we refer to the Panchakosha, we say my body, my mind, my intellect. Hence, these are what belongs to me is different from me. That's what he's saying here. Madiyam shariram. Madiyam means belonging to me. So shariram referring to the body. So we say things like, I have put on weight, I have tanned. We basically mean that this body has put on weight. We never say, so this is, when we talk about this body, my body, we're talking about it belonging to me. So from this argument, I cannot be the body because that which belongs to me is not me. The physical body, we say, is Annamaya Kosha, that is, which is made of food. This is what he's referring to as the Madiyam Shariram. And then he says Madiya Pranaha. So when we talk about things like, my digestion is weak, my breathing is heavy, my doctor says my circulation is not so good these days. Again and again, we talk of these things belonging to me, and hence it must be understood that it's distinct from me. Prana referring to the Pranamaya Kosha here. Then Madiyam Manasa, again, when we say things like, I feel disturbed, I'm happy, I feel peaceful after that meditation, what we basically mean is the mind is feeling these things. The mind is disturbed, the mind is happy, and so on. And we are able to talk of the mind, my mind, like it is something possessed by me. And hence, again, it cannot be me. Madiya Buddhi, referring to the Vijnanamaya Kosha, my intellect. Madiya Ajnana, referring to the ignorance of the Shushupti, the deep sleep state. So I may talk of my ignorance, that I didn't know anything when I slept, but again, this ignorance does not belong, is not me, it belongs to me, belongs to the Anandamaya Kosha. Svenena Jnayate, all these known as mine. The author gives a few examples. Kataka, bangle, kundala, earrings, griham, house. So the author is taking example of all valuable things here, because in these cases, our sense of ownership is very strong. We have strong, what we call mamakara here, the sense of mineness. This is mine, so it can be towards people, objects, anything. So this, the house is also taken in this example because we live in it. It's comparable to the body. A lot of punyam was required to acquire both. So all these Madiyatvena Jnatam that are claimed as mine, swasmadi binnam, and hence different from me, tata panchakoshadikam, that which is likewise, that which is composed of the 5 sheets, atmana bhavati, is not I. So we know that Panchakosha, when we did the Panchakosha, we went from the gross to the more subtle things, the mind, the emotions, and so on. And as we went from the gross to the more and more subtle things, the viveka, the discernment, becomes a bit harder to practice. Right? So not many of us are likely to confuse our object possessions to be us, though we might be very attached to them. And it's not so difficult to practice maybe that viveka when it comes to objects or even this physical body. But when it starts coming to the mind and emotions, deeper things like I'm feeling sad or I'm quite clever, the viveka becomes harder and harder to practice. So the trick is we have to practice with the gross things. And so you might be very attached to your car. So when your car gets scratched, or you might have a favorite shirt, you spill something on your favorite shirt. We all feel a little bit of pain, right? Almost like this is me. So when something happens to these gross things, practice discernment even then, and then it'll become and slowly start practicing that discernment with the more and more subtle things. And this is all finally practice for when we have to give our ultimate prized possession up, this body, at the time of death to Ishvara. So we have to remember that both the Sthula and the Sukshma Shariram are made of matter, right? One is the physical body is made of, after the grossification of the 5 elements, and the other, the mind and everything else which belongs to the subtle body, is made from the same 5 elements before they went under grossification. So the visible part of this we call matter, and the invisible part we call energy in science, right? But both the mind and the body are made from the same 5 elements. So when emotions arise and pass in this mind, it's of the same nature. They are all of the same level of existence. They are all insentient. They're all jada. If it is insentient, then it cannot produce sentiency. So the mind is not something which is producing this sentiency. You eat food, the food gets converted into the body as energy, and so there are various functions happening within the body, but that does not make the body sentient. Matter can never produce sentiency. So that we are perceiving is only a borrowed sentiency. Just like when we look at the moon and we look at the beautiful moonlight, we're having full moon days right now. This is but just a borrowed sunlight with lower intensity. We say moonlight, and probably we've all studied in science now, so we know it somewhere at the back of my mind that this light actually doesn't belong to the moon. It's only reflecting the sun's light. Similarly, this mind which appears sentient, there is so much interest and curiosity about this consciousness, and humans are said to be the most sentient beings, and there is always talk about which animals are sufficiently sentient or not. Like when in certain countries, it's illegal to eat octopus because they're supposed to have a very high level of sentiency. So when we try to perceive sentiency, we generally look at things like qualities like intelligence, the ability to feel, and so on. But all this characteristics that we're observing, it's not coming from the mind or not coming from this body. So the mind is simply reflecting a sentiency, the consciousness which already exists. So even this cup we call jada, inert, because it doesn't have a sukshma shariram. It doesn't have the subtle body. It doesn't have a mind which is capable of reflecting that consciousness principle. So the only difference between us and the cup, we are both made of the same 5 elements, is that sukshma shariram, which has the capacity to reflect the consciousness principle. Now, with this, the author has finished talking about anatma, all that we are not. We have to be very careful to remember that when we are doing all this negation, all this neti, we are talking about things we are distinct from, not completely different from, in the sense that the wave needs to understand that it's not just the wave. In a sense, it is the water. And in a sense, it's the same as the ocean. It has this temporary form of a wave. So that's what we mean by distinct from. The wave has to understand that it's not just a wave, it is water, right? So in the end of all this negation, you shouldn't end up with duality. right? Of course, this is a methodology of teaching. So right now we are doing this negation, and now we're going to talk about what exactly is Atma. And in the beginning levels, it's okay to think of these concepts of Atma and Anatma, right? But in the end, we will come to the fact that everything is Atma. So when I've done all this negation now, you have to remember that I am distinct from all these. This is not my essence. These are all temporary characteristics that are being reflected because of the upadhi of the body-mind sense complex. So we've talked about all this, what of an Atma so much, but the question, if you remember, was what is Atma? And the author hasn't yet talked about it. We had a brief description before that it is the only real I, the only Satyam. And we got a rough description that it is the invisible, immortal, inner essence of the individual. So your patience will now be rewarded because we will enter the profound topic of Atma, which is the main part of this text. Everything else so far was just mere preparation for this. So on your page 13, Atma tarhi kaham.
Atma tahikaha.
Satchidananda swarupaham.
Ananda Swarupaha.
Sat kim.
Sat Kim.
Kalatreyapi tishtatiti sat.
कालत्रयेऽपि तिष्ठतीति सत्
Chit kim.
चित् किम्
Jnanaswarupaham.
ज्ञानस्वरूपः
Anandah kaham.
आनन्दः
Sukswarupaham.
सुखस्वरूपम्
Evam Satchidananda Swarupam.
चिदानन्दस्वरूपम्
Vatmanam Vijaniyat.
आत्मानं विजानीयात्
Great. So now we come to Atma. What is it that I am if I am not all these things? Tarhi, then, if I am distinct from all these, referring to these 11 components we just discussed, what is Atma? The student asks, and the answer comes, Satchidananda Swarupa. The student obviously doesn't get any spark of enlightenment from hearing these words, so then it's continued, Sat Kim, what is Sat? And the answer comes, Kalatreyapi tishtatiti Sat. So before we get into that, it's important to understand that when we say Atma is Sat Chit Ananda, we are not talking about different components of Atma, different classifications of Atma. This is a class on non-duality, after all. We're here studying Advaita. So you have to understand this as intrinsic. These are all intrinsic to the Atma. So for example, when we talk about the fire, the heat principle and the light principle is both intrinsic to the fire, right? Can you, and why is this confusion so strong? When this Atma which pervades the body, why do we have a confusion with this body being the Atma? In Drigdrishya Viveka, the author gives a very, another beautiful text, another Prakarna Grantha. There is this beautiful example given of a red hot iron ball. So an iron ball was put in the fire, so now it's red hot, right? So when you look at this red hot iron ball and you say, I want to only experience the heat of the ball, it's not possible. You still need the ball to be able to experience the heat, right? So, and the fire, you want to experience the fire. Again, you can't separate the fire element or the light element from the ball. It can again only be experienced through a reflection of the ball. So this body and mind that we so strongly associate with, the confusion is the same. The Atma is pervading this body. The sentiency is getting reflected from this body. And hence we confuse this body-mind as us. Because separate from this body-mind, while the Atma is always there, there's nothing to reflect it, right? So Sat, Chit, Ananda are just these different intrinsic properties of Atma, like the heat and the light belongs to the fire. So what is Sat? Sat kim? Kalatraya api tishtatiti Sat. So Kalatraya api means that which exists in all three periods of time. So the past, present, and future. Tishtatiti stays, iti Sat. That is Sat. Sat can be translated as absolute existence. So we're not talking about Sat as in Satyam. So Sat of Satchitananda refers to absolute existence. So when we talk about Kala, time, it is also a created concept, right? At this very moment, as I'm talking to you, and so I can talk about the past, and I can talk about the future, but what exactly is the present moment? Is it this second, this microsecond, this fraction of this microsecond? The present actually has no length of time. It's over before I can even talk about it, right? Before I get one word out, the present is gone. So if I try to divide this present time, it either becomes the past or the future again. So we say Kala is Kalpita. It is a superimposed concept, just like the pot made of clay, where when we actually inquire into the existence of the pot, right? We asked, can I actually feel the pot? No, I can only feel the clay. Can I feel the weight of the pot? No, actually, I'm only feeling the weight of the clay, right? And it was only clay which existed before the pot came into existence. The clay existed while the pot was there. And after the pot is destroyed, again, it was only clay which remains. So that which remains in all three periods of time, that is Sat, that is Atma. And by Sat, we can also think of it as meaning Nityam, eternal. Sat is beyond all these three periods of time, like the clay is, and clay alone will be during all three periods of time of the pot. So let's look at our experience of the world. Yes, there is a world and objects in it that we experience, and there is an order of experiencing them. And for our comprehension of the world, we base it on two concepts, time and space. When I point to this object, I'm pointing to this object in a particular point in time, and right now it exists only in this limited space, right? So while it looks the same, it will not be the same in the next minute. There is some subtle small change which will happen. So same with this body. If you do a time-lapse video of this body over many days, many years, and I haven't really done anything to change it, the time lapse will still show minor changes. The body will be aging. If I'm looking at an inert object, the inert object will be decomposing. It's just that the changes are so subtle during the course of this one session. Maybe you won't notice any change in me, but there is actually a change happening every single second. Right? It's just very subtle changes, which is imperceivable to the naked eye. But that doesn't mean the changes are not happening. So every second, every fraction of the second, this changes is happening. The only constant we say is change. So a slightly disconcerting fact is that you will never come across the same object or same person again. Yet we form relationships, we get married, and we mourn the fact that the person changed. Right? This was not the person I married, we say. But whereas when you're looking at an Atma, when you're looking at this body or mind, change is the only constant. But there is something which is actually constant, which is actually permanent, which is not changing. And Shastra tells us that it is Brahman or Atman. Sat is existence. It's the very substance of everything that can be experienced. It can be used synonymously with Chit, which we will discuss next, the same way, like I mentioned before, the heat and light both belong to the fire and go hand in hand. So time consciousness is Sat, and object consciousness is Sat. It is said poetically sometimes, what I'm conscious of is constantly changing, but that I am conscious is unchanging. Sat is that which cannot be negated. Hence we call it abaditam Sat. The manifestation of Sat can take many names and forms, but the essence remains the same. I exist is the only thing that is unchanging. And the journey here that we're undertaking is being able to claim this unchanging absolute existence as I. Any questions? Let's continue then. So we already chanted this. I won't chant again. So Chit Kim Jnana Swarupa. So what is Chit? And the answer comes, it is the nature of pure consciousness. So Chit in Satchitananda can be translated as absolute consciousness. So we also know it as Chaitanyam or Jnanam or Vijnanam, that consciousness principle because of which this body, this inert body is alive, makes this bundle of inert matter sentient. That is the consciousness principle, Chit. This is what makes this body capable of feeling, experiencing the surroundings. Let's explore the truth of the world that you comprehend. If you look at this sweater, for example, you have sweater comprehension. You can look at it and say it's made of wool. So that gives you constituent comprehension. What is the comprehension minus the object? That is pure consciousness. The author says Chit is Jnana Swarupa. Jnanam is comprehension. So that comprehension, which is present in every comprehension, that is the consciousness principle. Right? So when you're looking at the sweater, you've attached a name to it. You've attached some concept of what it is made of and so on. But just that knowing before any name form comes to your mind, that is the pure consciousness principle. So you might see, you can try it. You can try to become aware of this yourself when you're in your day-to-day, when you say you're just sitting and something is coming towards you. Maybe it's a cat, right? So immediately you'll observe the cat coming and you will think, cat, then you'll say maybe it's a black cat and attach a few other names and forms and concepts to it. But just that comprehension, just that pure knowing, pure awareness. So if you're sitting, try to be just aware of that awareness. Okay. So we can try it now. If you want to close your eyes and try to be aware. Try to be aware of awareness itself. You might be hearing different sounds. There might be thoughts coming. But what is it that's actually aware of the thoughts? There's silence. What is it that is aware of the silence? Can you simply be aware of yourself? And if you want to gently open your eyes, that can be one form of meditation. Simply being aware of awareness itself. So when we are using English, we sometimes use the word consciousness and awareness to just separate the fact that when we talk about consciousness, we're actually talking about the absolute consciousness. And when we're talking about awareness, we're actually talking about that reflected consciousness, that this like like the moonlight and the sunlight. So we can actually never really be aware of that absolute consciousness. We cannot experience that absolute consciousness ever, not even in your deepest samadhi, because that's the state of non-duality. That's the state where the subject-object experience division all collapses, right? So what we're actually able to ever experience is only that quality of awareness, that quality of the reflected consciousness, the pratibimba. And we talk about now 5 principles or capsules of consciousness. The first one is consciousness is not a property, part, or product of the body, because it's not a property of the body in the sense that the height of the body, the weight, the color, these all are properties of the body. But sentiency, the consciousness we're talking about, is not a property of the body. Consciousness is not a part of the body. Like the hair, the skin, nails are part of the body. Again, the sentiency, consciousness is not a part of the body. Nor is it a product of the body. Cells are created in this body, enzymes, blood. Similarly, in the mind, thoughts, emotions arise. But the mind or body cannot create consciousness, cannot make it alive. So the first capsule is that consciousness is not a property, part, or product of the body. The second Capsule is that consciousness is an invisible, independent entity which pervades the body and makes the body alive, like the invisible electricity, which pervades the visible fan, making it active. Right? So the electricity is not a property, part, or product of the fan. The electricity existed before the existence of the fan. It's an independent entity which is simply pervading the fan and making the fan active. So the otherwise inert fan becomes alive because of this electricity. Right? I see there's a question. I will finish the 5 capsules and then I'll take the question. So the third principle or capsule is that the invisible independent consciousness is not limited by the boundaries of the body. It exists beyond the body. It doesn't have a height or width. These belong to the body. It is not confined to the spatial boundaries of the body, just like electricity is not bound by the body of the fan. The length belongs to the fan, not to the electricity. Consciousness itself is boundless, limitless. We call it sarvagata, all pervading. And the fourth principle is this consciousness will continue to survive even after the body medium dies. So it will survive the death of the physical body. If the bulb is broken and no light comes out, we know that it's only the bulb which is broken. We don't assume there is no electricity. Consciousness itself is eternal, nitya. You, the Atma, were never born. You will never die. The body will come and go, but you yourself are eternal. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna likens this body to the clothes that you wear and discard at the end of the day. Just like this, he says, what are you grieving for, Krishna? What are you grieving for, Arjuna? Krishna says. When you're grieving for the death of, the upcoming death of these people, who are you grieving for? These bodies are nothing but like these clothes that we wear and discard at the end of the day. At the end of this birth, you will discard this physical body and the soul will travel to take on another body. Unless, of course, your quest in this lifetime of Vedanta is fruitful and you realize your true self, then there is no more travel for you. And the final capsule is the surviving consciousness. The consciousness, because it's eternal, we said, right? It cannot be recognized by us when the medium of the body is not there. Not because the consciousness is not there, but because the reflecting medium is no longer there. So in the room, only outlet for electricity is there, but if the bulb is broken or any other devices have not been plugged in yet, it cannot be perceived. The electricity itself cannot be perceived. You can try to put your finger in the socket and you will feel it, but again, you're feeling it through the medium of another body. So it's aprameya. It's not perceptible to the senses. Only the reflection is recognizable. So these are the 5 capsules or principles of consciousness. Neha, do you want to ask a question?
Yes, thank you so much. The meditation was lovely. My question is, when we are meditating, becoming aware of the awareness, then also we are using our mind and body to become aware of this awareness, right?
Right.
So, right, in the one of the points you said that it is your body and mind can't decipher the consciousness. So, if you could just explain when we are
you can always perceive, what I said was, you can always get a reflection of that consciousness. So the fact that you are aware of anything is because of consciousness, right? The fact that you're able to operate your mouth and bring those words out is because of consciousness. That you can see me on the screen and you can listen to what I'm saying and comprehend what I'm saying is all because of consciousness. So every experience that you have is an experience of that consciousness, but it's an experience of simply a reflection of that consciousness. So what I was trying to do in the meditation was remove some of the names and forms, right? So to get you to a purer reflection. But even in your deepest meditative states, even in the deepest samadhi, what you will experience will only be a reflection of that consciousness. And what we need to understand that every experience is an experience of consciousness itself. But it's more than that. We're not just experiencing consciousness. Consciousness is what's allowing that Triphuti to be possible. What is this? The object is because of the consciousness. The subject is because of the consciousness. And this process that is happening of observation, of awareness is because of consciousness. So consciousness is all there is. That's what we're trying to understand. Does that help?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Sure. Mithika, you have a question?
Thank you so much. So the last point that you said about the consciousness cannot be realized without a body, triggers another question in mind, which is, so is it sort of going like all of this, and within it also asking the question of what is the purpose of it all, also into the body or the consciousness? And I'm wondering, it's just there, but does it help? How does it help answer that question, or are we moving towards that somewhere?
What is the purpose of all this? So that is, we kind of said it before, but the question of the why the one became many, right? So the why these repeated births, why the law of karma exists, why do we have to do this play of seeking to know myself? The why is the one big unanswerable question. So there are many theories, stories about it, but Brahman and Maya are both anadi, both beginningless. And that's what Shastra says. So there is no clear answer to the why. And I think probably, I mean, they have theories like there was this desire for the one to become many, to experience myself. That is one answer they give. You can pick the one which satisfies you, but quite honestly, that is the only question which Shastra does not answer.
Okay, thank you so much.
So you have to recognize this Atma as I. It's not just a theoretical concept that we are looking at. This Atma we are talking about right now, these 5 capsules we just talked about right now, you have to think of it as yourself. I'm not a property, part, or product of the body. I'm an invisible, independent entity which pervades this body, and I make this body alive. And I'm not limited by the boundaries of the body. I extend beyond the body. I'm not limited by the time frame of this body. I will survive even after this body medium dies. And it's just that the surviving consciousness cannot be recognized without the medium of the body, but it is always there. So apply these 5 capsules to yourself. It's time to, during the course of the study now, to drop the incorrect claim of the body as I, the emotions or intellect as I, the ignorance as I. These all simply belong to me. These are not me. The immortal, invisible essence, that is me. I am the consciousness temporarily possessing this body. Just like in deep sleep, the mind is resolved, but I survive, right? You wake up and you talk about your sleeps. Even when this body drops, I survive. One of the Mahavakyas, the great statements in Vedanta tells us, Prajnanam Brahma, consciousness is Brahma. And two more tell you, Aham Atma Brahma, the self is Brahman, and Aham Brahmasmi, that I am Brahman. And finally, there is Tattvamasi, which we will look at in detail, that thou art that. This consciousness is Brahman or Atman, and this consciousness is I. So that's where we're headed. So this part of this section of Tattva Bodha, we are looking at the jiva, right? So we're exploring what all is a jiva, an atma of a jiva. And then in the next section of Tattva Bodha, we will look at the atma portions of Ishvara. And then finally, we will look at the aikyam, the oneness between these two. And just like we said, these 5 capsules about the body, you can extend the same to the mind and intellect. These are all experienced by me. The knowledge is experienced by me. I know what is known. Ignorance is also known to me. And after negating everything, you come to that blankness. Even that blankness is known to me. Even that blankness is experienced. The consciousness principle was always there. I am that sarva abhava sakshi. I am that witness of everything, even the blankness. So this teaching is to make us drop the misconceptions that I am the body, mind, or intellect, thoughts, emotions, that I'm the waker, dreamer, or sleeper. I am what enlivens all this. Pray more attention to the trick, the seer, and you will see that it is much more fascinating than the drishya, the what is seen. Continuing, we chanted it already. It says then Ananda kaha, and the answer is Sukha Swarupaha. Evam Satchidananda Swarupam Swatmanam Vijaniyat. So what is Ananda? Ananda can be translated as absolute bliss, or in the even better translation is wholeness. And this answer, Sukh Swarupa, it's the nature of absolute bliss or wholeness. Evam, in this manner, Vijaniyat, may one know Swatmanam, one's own self. Satchidananda Swarupam, of the nature of existence, consciousness, and wholeness. So in summary, what is Ananda? It is the form of happiness. In this manner, may one know one's own self to be the nature of absolute existence, consciousness, and wholeness. The truth of Sukham, happiness, is wholeness. Think of I asked you to do this exercise, I think, before also. Think of these moments, these temporary moments where you felt really completely happy, right? What happened in those moments? In those moments, you can't possibly want anything more because you feel complete, you feel full. There is any sense of deficiency is removed. That is the experience of, just a reflection of that experience of wholeness. So any desire which arises is because somewhere deep down we seem to know that my nature is wholeness. My nature is eternal, and we are trying to fulfill, get a sense of that, my own wholeness. But oftentimes, because of ignorance, we have this sense of lack. And then we're trying to fill this sense of lack through objects of the world. So we think acquiring this thing or keeping this thing with me will make me happy, or having this relationship, having this person in my life will make me happy. So we said all these purusharthas, the goals, pursuits in life that we have, is because we're seeking happiness. We're seeking that fulfillment, sense of fullness. So, but we mistakenly look for this fullness from external objects of the world. And what is left to actually do is realize that this fullness is myself. Shastra tells us that all misery in life is because of this mistaken sense of apurna, because this mistaken sense of incompleteness, that I'm lacking in something. This apurna, this mistaken sense of incompleteness, is what gives rise to desire, kama. Thinking something else will make me happy. We give the example of, I don't know if I've given this to you before, of a dog who finds a dry bone, right? So the dog's very excited, and the dog starts chewing the bone, but it's very dry, so nothing's coming out of it. But after a long time, the bone gets broken, and the shards cut the mouth of the dog, and some blood comes out. So the dog tastes the blood, gets very excited, and chews the bone even more. So this seeking things from external world is a bit like this dog example, that fulfillment, fullness is already there. What is the dog tasting when it's tasting the blood? It's its own blood. So when we experience happiness from external things or people of the world, we have to realize that this is simply my own happiness, which is getting reflected. Your nature is this wholeness, is this absolute bliss already. So, and that is always available to you. So if something external of the world is making you happy, that's perfectly fine. But practice discernment there too. You can enjoy whatever it is that is making you happy. Know that what's actually happening is it's just creating the right conducive environment for the mind to be calm. And in that quiet, calm mind, your Ananda is able to get reflected fully. So that's what you're experiencing. So if you know this, then you can come to equanimity. So even when there is no conducive conditions for this calm mind, you can tap in to this Ananda, which you know is always there. This Purna Ananda, when it's actually there, it will be expressed as, I don't need anything to be happy. I don't miss anything. So that means when pleasurable things of the world are there, you enjoy it, but at the back of your mind, always remember that this is your own bliss which is getting reflected. And when they're not there, simply tap in to your UPS, your uninterrupted pleasure supply. Any questions? So this is the Atma that I am. This Sat Chit Ananda, absolute existence, absolute consciousness, and absolute bliss. That is the essence that is me. So it's of course, a very profound, deep topic. And right now, a lot of it might just seem like words to you. But that is the truth we are here to realize. And that is the purpose of all this Vedantic study. And because it's a very subtle concept to grasp, the same thing will be explained in various different ways. And at some point, it will make sense. And like we say, like the hungry man who starts eating, he doesn't have to wait till the full meal is complete, till the hunger is satiated. His hunger will start getting satiated as he starts eating. Right? So it is with this study also. As you expose yourself to this teaching, your hunger will start getting satiated. You will find more and more of that fulfillment. You will be able to tap into more of your Ananda. And ultimately, you will be able to abide completely in your Ananda. Okay, if no more questions, we can do the ending prayers. Someone unmuted. Did they want to ask a question?
I think you answered. I had unmuted briefly. Thanks for asking. You
Sure.
answered that it is very deep and complex. It will take a little while to really understand how it gets applied. My question that had popped up was, so if all of this we know we can tap into as Ananda, then how also to connect? Like it helps us be. The idea of karma we sometimes attach to the action, and there is some purushartha involved in the karma. And with all of this, it seems like even that is not actually needed. Even karma should not be needed because you just have to be. So it's a little confusing.
Do you have a question there though, or it's just content?
No, it is. Yeah, maybe it's just a comment.
Okay.
It's just an observation. Maybe
Sure.
it's
So
not a correct
I will let you continue contemplating on that. And a lot more of these things will become clearer as we continue. We will talk extensively about law of karma, what that means. Yeah, like we will answer a lot of these big questions in life, which so you can put them aside and then focus on the real stuff.
Thank you.
Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Tat Sat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a lovely
Thank you.
day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.